Thank you. Welcome everybody to today's extraordinary full council meeting. I'd welcome also to members in the public who are attending in the public gallery, to any of those who are in the conference hall, and also to those watching via our YouTube channel. For those in the building, I'd like to draw your attention to the emergency evacuation procedures. If there is an emergency, leave by the door and gather by the cathedral. First item on the agenda is declarations of interest. Please, may I ask whether any councillors have any interest to declare regarding the items on today's agenda? Nothing? Thank you. Agenda item 4, freedom of the city. As set out in the report, full council is asked to approve the award of freedom of the city to HMS Prince of Wales. As Lord Mayor, I am the person who's going to move this report today. I really feel my duty in a way is to explain to especially the public watching this exactly what we're doing here today. We're granting freedom of the city to a ship, HMS Prince of Wales. But of course, we're not really granting it to the ship as such. It's more, we are granting it to the personnel who serve on that ship. And we have actually granted freedom of the city to 8 regiments. So it's quite similar to that. And people will be familiar with the fact that we've given freedom of the city to individuals who have been here in the chamber before. But I think perhaps giving it to a ship is just slightly different. There is also a difference, I suppose, that I think that military personnel perhaps benefit more from having freedom of the city because they actually get to do something concrete. We struggled at the last freedom of city where we tried to explain to people that they had very limited rights or anything that was gained from having the freedom of the city, apart from the fact that it is a great prestige. But actually, for the military, they do get to, let me just look at the exact phrase, they do get to march through the city with drums beating, colours flying and bayonets fixed. So this is something that we have to look forward to in the summer. So today we have the debate, we have our decision, and then the personnel of HMS Prince of Wales will return to the city in the summer, hopefully, and have their parade. We have this ship. I mean, I think it's worth explaining as well. I'm very aware of the fact that an audience to this might find it confusing. But there was a ship, the HMS Bristol, which was affiliated to the city. But HMS Bristol was decommissioned. And then in 2016, the decision was made to affiliate ourselves to HMS Prince of Wales. That's an affiliation which hopefully will last for the next 50 years. We're not the only city affiliated to it. It's also affiliated to Liverpool. HMS Prince of Wales, the representatives and the personnel, I've met them before here, and they've been down and they have worked very hard at the Remembrance Day. A large proportion of the crew came down to the city and supported the Poppy Appeal. And I know that they have good plans to work in our schools to support STEM. And I know also, I'd like to just comment that Councillor Holland, as the champion, is closely linked with the affiliation group. I also note that we have here today in the chamber, we're fortunate enough to have the presence of the Lord Lieutenant, Peaches, who works closely with the affiliation, who supports all of this. I've also been told that there are 2 suites on the ship. One is a Bristol suite, and there's also a Liverpool suite. And I know that the Lord Mayor, I haven't managed to do this yet, but we have some wonderful street signs of Bristol which are going to be put up in the ship so that any dignitaries visiting it, and this ship obviously is going to be travelling all over the world as well as we know in exercises that you are going to do, and an exercise which unfortunately had to be abandoned recently because of unfortunate engineering works, but also in humanitarian work. So I have great pleasure in bringing this report here today. I'm interested to hearing what people will have to say about it, and I look forward to you coming up here and signing your certificate and giving it to you. Thank you. So I would like now to move on to ask the Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Steve Smith, if he would like to second the nomination.
Yes, thank you very much, my Lord Mayor. Captain, it's a real pleasure and honour to second the nomination today. We're facing a time in the world today where we face great attention. We see, once again, war on our continent. And I think at this time it's wonderful to see, looking across the chamber, across all political boundaries, that we can come together to thank and show our gratitude and our respect for those who step up on our behalf. We have, as you said, Lord Mayor, affiliations to various military units in Bristol, and we value them all. But I think as a maritime city, it's a real point of pride and a real pleasure to be affiliated to the biggest, most advanced warship that the Royal Navy has ever put to sea. I heard an interesting statistic from no less than a previous captain of Prince of Wales that I believe you could actually fit, of the previous generations of aircraft carriers, all of the 3 previous biggest aircraft carriers the Royal Navy has had inside Prince of Wales at the same time. That's the extent of the step forward that we have with this vessel. But of course, we're not awarding freedom of the city to a piece of hardware, however impressive that hardware may be. We're awarding it to the women and the men who live and sail and operate the ship, to the ship's company. And I can say from experience that the ship's company is a fantastic group of people. I had the pleasure, when I occupied your chair last year, Lord Mayor, to meet some of the ship's company when they were in Bristol for a weekend. We saw the White Ensign into the cathedral where it now hangs. And we also enjoyed a wonderful mess dinner on board the SS Great Britain. It was my first experience of a naval mess dinner. And I have to say, I hope it wasn't my last. It was a wonderful occasion. I think that by the 3rd verse of Rule Britannia, it may have been only me and the captain that were still singing, but I think we put up a pretty decent show. And if anyone hasn't caught up with the Fly on the Wall documentary about the Prince of Wales, then I recommend that you do, because it really gives an insight into the work of the ship and the people that sail on her. I'm still 1 episode from the end, so no spoilers, please. It was, I have to say, the one regret, if anything, of my year as Lord Mayor, that I never actually made it on board the ship to present those street signs. It was all set up, and I'm afraid Mr. Putin had other ideas, and the ship had rather more important things to do than entertain Lord Mayors, and quite rightly so. This is not an affiliation that is just about Lord Mayors and street signs and flags and dinners and parades, wonderful though all those things are. The Prince of Wales is, as I said, one of the most advanced ship in the Royal Navy. It is stuff full of technology that I don't begin to understand, and I'm probably not allowed to. But what I do understand is that to do the work that the ship does, it requires, of course, all of the skills that the Royal Navy has on all of its ships, but it requires coders, and it requires cryptanalysts and people who do all sorts of high-tech, very complex, modern work to do the work that it does. And Bristol, we are a city where we're proud of our high-tech industry. We're proud of our 2 great universities. And I think this is an affiliation that offers the opportunity for that 2-way exchange, that Bristol, I hope, can support Prince of Wales in more than just ceremonial. And similarly, Prince of Wales can support Bristol. So I look forward to the parade when it comes in June, but I look forward to this being a long association with benefits on both sides. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Now I'd like to call on Councillor Emma Edwards to speak on behalf of the Green Group.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm actually reading this speech on behalf of our Deputy Councillor Tim Y, who wrote this speech, and he asked to because it's talking about his grandfather. So I'm not going to pretend that this proposal is uncontroversial to our group. The Green Party stands against war and nuclear capacity in particular. Our policy, revisited this weekend, states that any military intervention must be under the auspices of the United Nations. Intervention operations must have a clear, articulate end state. We would also have legitimate concerns whether spending £6 billion on each of the new carriers is really the cost-effective use of public money, even in sole terms of defence policy. You could further argue that this would be better spent on defending ourselves against the much clearer threat of the climate emergency. We might also say that other ships, like Greenpeace's Rainbow Warrior, might also be worthy of freedom of the city. However, it is important to remember that the freedom of the city is being awarded to neither a particular defence policy nor to a piece of hardware. It is about the crew. It is not them that makes the political decision to go to war. This award is for the mainly young people who put themselves at risk supporting our country. The people who respond to humanitarian crisis across the world. I particularly remember reading about last year's support for the volcanic eruption in Tonga. On a personal note, my grandfather, who I knew, was a professional sailor and a submariner in the First World War. He regaled me as a young child with stories of his exploits and his service. In the present day, I have a friend who is currently on deployment aboard HMS Portland. I know he is a decent, dedicated man who has left his young family for months on end out of a sense of duty. I would suggest that he is typical of Navy personnel, and I would not hesitate in giving him the freedom of the city. My party approves granting this honour to the crew, but as you can see, has reservations about supporting a warship. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I now call on Councillor Helen Holland to speak on behalf of the Labour Group?
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor and Captain and representatives of the ship. And for a moment there, I thought that Councillor Smith was going to be inviting us to watch the fly on the wall of the dinner at the SS Great Britain, because it sounded very interesting. But I'll put that on one side for a moment. It is a huge honour to speak on behalf of the Labour Group and as the Council's Armed Forces champion on this occasion. Conferring this honour is not something that we do every day, but it's all the more special, I think, when we do. And it's not just about a few nice words on a Tuesday afternoon and your planned Freedom Parade in the summer, and I hope it's going to be a day like today, and I'm sure that Bristol will turn out in numbers to watch. The links and programme of events reinforcing the link, both through the affiliation board that's already been mentioned and our Armed Forces Covenant work, I hope can and will extend this partnership with the ship in many ways in the future. Bristol signed the Armed Forces Covenant over 10 years ago. Now all local authorities have a statutory duty to respond to the requirements of the Covenant and to abide by that promise, and these are the words that are used, that those who serve and those who have served should be treated fairly, recognising the contribution that they, you, make to our country's security and the vital humanitarian work that you undertake. To that end, we've given this work much higher profile in recent years. Members, colleagues who are on the HR committee will know that we've recently achieved the bronze level in the Defence Employer Recognition Scheme, which we're very proud of. We work very well with the service charities and organisations in the Veterans Hub that is held once a month down at Bedminster Cricket Club, and the work that Steve Smith has already referred to around STEM and recruitment. We also know that there is huge support for our services in Bristol, and we're always told that our Remembrance Day parade is the second largest in the country outside London. I want to say a little bit about the only other ship that's been conferred this honour, HMS Bristol. That happened in the 1970s. In 1982, HMS Bristol was deployed to the Falklands conflict. As members and colleagues who were able to join us will recall, last June, we commemorated that link with HMS Bristol on the 40th anniversary of the Falklands conflict, recognising the role of the ship at that time. I have to say that I've been involved with many things over the years that I've represented the City Council, and you go to meetings where you're planning something and you think it's all going to go very smoothly, and it did go smoothly, don't get me wrong. But I struggle to remember a more moving occasion than that service. It was wonderful to see. And of course, those sailors who had served on HMS Bristol, both from Bristol, but also I think I'm right in recollecting that we had people from Canada come over for that service. What it meant to them to have a very outward and visible sign of the connection with the ship from the city after which it was named was really important. Though while I don't hope, I hope not, that in 40 years' time the anniversary won't be of a similar occasion than the Falklands, I do hope that that gives you some evidence of that kind of enduring link that being conferred with this honour today will give to the ship, and I'm delighted to be able to speak in support of it.
Thank you. I'm going to move straight to Councillor Joss Clark now to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat group.
Thank you, my Lord Mayor. I'm really honoured to be able to speak on behalf of the Liberal Democrat group in support of this nomination. There are a number of reasons why I wanted to speak today. To honour the links with Bristol and acknowledge the contribution, of HMS Bristol. The fact that HMS Bristol served the country for 20 years, seeing action in the Falklands in 1982 and finally being decommissioned in 1991. I was thrilled to hear that HMS Prince of Wales was honouring both Liverpool and Bristol with named suites of rooms in each city's name. This is a nod to our maritime past and a way of honouring HMS Bristol's contribution and service to this country. In speaking today, I would really like to touch on the Armed Forces' contribution to humanitarian work across the world and thank the Navy for all their support they have given in areas hit by natural disasters as well as people caught up in conflict. We would all love a world where we did not need the armed forces and armed services, but this unfortunately is not the world we currently live in. I, for one, am very glad for the men and women who choose to serve and protect this country. Finally, I would just like to share with you my experiences of the ship and its crew. Myself and Marvin were really lucky to be invited to visit the ship in April 2019 in Rosyth, while it was still under construction, where we could see HMS Queen Elizabeth alongside, which was very special. All I can say was it was a truly amazing day. The ship is absolutely massive, and I could not get over the feat of engineering and the logistics involved. And the thing that really stunned me was the miles and miles and miles of wiring, and getting your head around the construction and how anybody can, work it all out was just quite beyond me, I have to say. I have to say that when we were up in Rosyth, the Navy, I think as a little bit of a joke really, they gave all the women white boiler suits and we had toe detectors, but none of the men had. They just wandered around in suits, I seem to recall. And I think that was just a bit of a joke at our expense. And there are some truly horrendous photographs of me in a white boiler suit, but we won't go into that at all. I saw it coming into port, the ship coming into Portsmouth in November 2019, which was fantastic. It was a really, truly wonderful experience with members of the public lining the streets as the ship came into port, which was lovely to see, and to see all the ship's company on deck. And I was really lucky in December 2020 to be at the commissioning with the now King in attendance. I was also invited to Liverpool in February 2020 to a reception to celebrate the association of the two cities, Bristol and Liverpool. This was a fantastic occasion, and there were many members of the public from Bristol attending the occasion as well. but it was also fantastic to have an opportunity to meet and talk with members of the crew at the time. So finally, I would like to say a big thank you to you, the Navy, because my experiences of the Navy directly influenced my son joining the armed forces. But he still cannot empty a dishwasher, so there is something going wrong with your training. But thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd like now to call on Councillor Gary Hopkins to speak on behalf of the Knoll Community Party.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Let's first realise that this award is to the service and not just to the ship. That's absolutely vital to understand. Those people who defend our freedom and our liberty. And there's been numerous incidents over the last 50 years where that's been vital. And it doesn't always have to end in a problem. Argentina is now a much better country from that which went into the war against us with the generals in charge. It's now a much better country. If you stand up to bullies, you actually are doing a much better job than running away. We now have a very dangerous situation in the world with Putin invading Ukraine and the Chinese eyeing up Taiwan, allies of ours that we must protect. And unfortunately, that means that we have to have the hardware as well as the people prepared to put their lives on the line to defend us and to defend our friends. I think that it's essential that we actually look at the reality of things, not as what we would ideally want them to be. And I would also understand that when people are in the forces, particularly in the Navy, they are to some extent ruthless. Now they have their comrades, they have the service, but to have somewhere that they know cares about them and their safety and their welfare, I think is important. So I therefore strongly support what we're actually doing here today. And I'll cut my speech short so that we can hear rather more from the recipients. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, I'd like to ask Mayor Marvin Reese if he'd like to say a few words.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor, and welcome to the Council Chamber. And just picking up on some of the points, I think it's a real honour to be able to grant freedom of the city because it locks it into the city's history. This is you know, we had a relationship already, but this really establishes it and locks it in for future people to reflect on and understand. You know, as Councillor Jos Clark said, we came up to Rosyth to visit the ship. Thank you very much for the welcome we had. It was absolutely fantastic day with you all. And just like Ros, I was just taken by the size, the complexity, you know, of the ship. It really is awe-inspiring. I don't use that lightly. And I was amazed at the narrowness of the dock that it was in, and just thought about the pilot must be sweating when they're trying to get out. Brand new ship, couple of feet space on either side to get out. Tough job. It does sound like you do have a bit of work to do on the dishwasher emptying skills, but I'm sure that could be picked up outside of here. I just want to acknowledge the fullness of your role for us as a country, and I would say, you know, as a world too. Clearly, there's the role of defence, and I believe you need a strong defence. Right? There are times where people will listen because you have the ability to make aggression pay a price for its aggression. And we thank you that at any point in time, you have stepped into a place where at any point in time you could be called on to put your lives on the line to take that stand on our behalf. And thank you for that. What we've also learned a lot about in the city is your role in terms of our diplomacy as well. And again, with the Bristol Room on a ship, it is about going out, building relationships, trying to build a world architecture in which we have the space for conversations and which we strengthen those historic relationships cross-border as well. And sometimes that's against the political wind. At this moment in time, people seem to be determined to put up walls, and you're going around the world creating space for us to have a conversation. So we thank you for that. And also just to acknowledge the role of the Navy and the other armed services in creating opportunities for people. You know, I was a young man who ran around a little bit myself, you know, and you know, enjoyed my time running around some hills. Cousins of mine, you know, in the mid-80s didn't know what they were going to do with themselves, left school with very little, and they all went to join the army. And for many of them, it was the making of them. It gave them structure, gave them discipline, character, and gave them a sense of belonging in a world in which they might otherwise have been lost. And this happens time and time again, doesn't it? That young people join and they find a vocation and a journey. And we thank you for the ongoing role you play in that. So it's a real source of pride for us. And one thing that I think Jos would remember with me as well is the authenticity of the way in which your officers spoke about their connection to Bristol and the pride. And so we know this is a genuine relationship between us and yourselves, and thank you for that. And we look forward to the ongoing relationship. Thanks.
Thank you, Marvin. Thank you. Thank you all. So now, can I please ask the Council to confirm that the freedom of the city be conferred upon HMS Prince of Wales? All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against? It's carried. Thank you. So now I have the privilege to invite the recipients who are here today to join me here on the dais to accept the freedom of the city and to address the Chamber.
Lord Mayor, Lord Lieutenant, Mayor, Councillors, ladies and gentlemen, and most importantly to all of you, friends of HMS Prince of Wales, it's a real privilege and honour to accept the freedom of the city today, which I'm also delighted to say we will exercise in only a short time later this year in the summer. I take note of the council meeting today and in some cases the conflict of interests that some of you may have felt in awarding Prince of Wales and the freedom of the city to its sailors. And that is very much at the forefront of my mind when I say a few words back to you today. So that's not lost on me, and I'm really very, very grateful. And let me assure you of this. You are awarding and bestowing this freedom of the city to my sailors, who are only in Prince of Wales for a short matter of time before they move on and the next generation of sailors join. And as I say to my sailors on board, we are just a stitch in the tapestry of Prince of Wales of a ship that will last 50 years. But what I can assure you is that the ethos, the culture, and the values that resonate with all of us here, I will ensure they are upheld in Prince of Wales. So I do take note of the difficult decisions in some cases you've had and the conflict of interests, and I'm very, very grateful for your support in bestowing this huge, huge honour. A couple of more points, if I may, before I return in the summertime when we are bestowed and we exercise this. And that is just to note that we are so proud of our affiliation with Bristol. You will be the first city to award freedom of the city to a fifth-generation strike carrier and the first city that will allow its sailors of more than 300 to march through your amazing city. And I have done a recce in the last 24 hours, a reconnaissance, a walk round to have a look. And I cannot tell you how proud they will be to march through, drums banging, with a fixed ensign as we go through the streets in the city to be applauded by the general public. And for me to say to my sailors, give back to the city of Bristol and make the city of Bristol realise that HMS Prince of Wales is yours. I'm also very fortunate that in the next few weeks and months, we'll be awarded those nameplates that haven't made it quite back of your great city names, which will be adorned along the walls, the corridors, the compartments in Prince of Wales. So as the sailors of this generation for the next 2 years, and the generation of sailors for the next 50 years, as they walk around Prince of Wales, They will always be reminded of the values, the culture and the ethos of Bristol, and that will resonate through up until the end of Prince of Wales in some 50 years' time. There is so much more I wish to say to all of you, but I hope when I return in June and with all my sailors and all my ship's company, I want to save something to when they're here too. So as one team, as the City of Bristol and the ship's company of Prince of Wales, combined with one vision, as we look ahead to the future, I will say a few more words that brings us back together. But I think I'll finish there by just saying a huge honour and privilege as one of the many future commanding officers of HMS Prince of Wales. Of note, it is likely that the last captain of Prince of Wales has not been born yet. Such is the lifespan of Prince of Wales. And maybe one of those captains will be from the City of Bristol himself or herself when they see the values and the culture and the ethos we've created. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you all in June.
That concludes the extraordinary full council meeting. Refreshments are available for councillors and guests in the conference hall, tea and cake and coffee. We councillors will return to the chamber at 6 p.m. for our full council meeting. So thank you very much.